We have now launched today our website. Cage Side Scene MMA is live today.
It was 2012. I remember watching the fireworks from my balcony that night in Parker and just thinking, wow, those two guys are going to be in the UFC soon. And it was Kelvin and it was John Moraga on the same card. And they both went to the UFC right after.
Wow. That is crazy. So you were the announcer, right? Is that what it's called, the terminology?
Yep, the ring announcer. I was the poor man's Bruce Buffer. right down to the $300 suit as opposed to the $5,000 suits that he has.
Hey, it's how you rock it. It's how you rock it.
Well, it's funny because when I met you in the line, and anybody who's listening right now, like we met at that event and we were standing in line, either getting coffee or sandwiches. It was like some kind of nasty deli there at the casino. And
terrible food. Oh.
Yeah, the food was not good. And we were standing in line together, and we had a little bit of a conversation. I didn't know you were the ring announcer or anything. I don't even think I don't even recall the conversation we had, but I just remember sitting there watching the fights and being like, oh, I know him. I know him. I just met him.
You know what? I'll tell you this. I don't know how you didn't know I was the ring announcer, because not everyone was walking around in a shiny silver suit. That's like a dead giveaway, Amanda.
That sounds like Amanda.
That sounds like
Amanda.
Oh, okay.
I just like to dress like this for fights.
And that's me.
It's refreshing.
I might have even changed before then. I don't know, but I'm just giving you a hard time. But I mean, the one thing about that everyone should know if they're hearing the story is that this casino is where we used to do our fights for Rough MMA in Arizona, and that's where a lot of UFC fighters kind of came through. And it's about, oh man, I forget now. I drove it so many times over the years, like 4 hours away maybe from Phoenix, I want to say, and you were coming from Yuma. So that's even further for you, but it was a big night for you and for your gym and for your team and for everybody with you guys. And it was awesome to be there and be a part of it. But just to set the scene a little bit, this casino, and I don't even want to say the name because it's like I'm about to say some really bad things about it. It's an awesome place to go. Used to love going on the road trips. Used to love the river up there. Every time I jumped in that river, I felt pure and almost like I was going in holy water. But the food is the worst food you've ever had anywhere in your life, whether it be the buffet, whether it be the snack bar where we met in line. And it was the only food there. So when you're hungry enough, I mean, obviously anything tastes good when you're hungry enough. So you just say, all right, I'll get the grilled cheese, I'll get the meatball sub or the burger or whatever. And it's that kind of food late at night. So there's a line of about, maybe when we met each other, about 20, 25 people. And we were about halfway. So you were forced to endure my nonsense for probably about 15, 20 minutes as we waited to order our food. And so that's literally how we met. And then we kind of stayed in touch here and there over the years on social media and just kind of rooted for each other from a distance. And, I've seen you move to Georgia and seen you just everything you do and all the empowering things, all your content. And I think I told you this the other day, and Sarah, you probably can relate to this because Amanda's a really inspirational person, and that's what I do is my purpose is to inspire as many people as possible. So I look for content every day, kind of like a favorites list of people who inspire me, and Amanda, you're on that list. So it's something that, she's always got something. There's always a little nugget somewhere in there for me, and if not more.
Yeah, well, do you know the tagline for Past the Threshold for our podcast?
Say that again?
Our tagline for Past the Threshold for our podcast. Can you hear?
Yes. Yeah, I can hear you. Sorry, the AC is a little loud.
Okay. Yeah. It's a honest reality in a world full of bullshit. So we try to be, the motivation element of it is such a beautiful thing, but at the same time, it's about being honest. And I think that's a big element of what's missing on social media, not sugarcoating it with bullshit positivity, but being completely transparent about hey, this is, what it's really like, but you can always, not just inspire other people and work through whatever it is that comes to you. So, yeah.
And that's one main reason why I'm excited to share your story, Jim, because you've gone through a roller coaster. you've gone from the
I'm
day
so
that we
interested.
met
Yeah.
to even the other day I was listening to your live on Facebook and knowing that, hey, you've been going through stuff and still staying true to your course and, hey, this is what I'm going to do, you know, finding, you know, the positivity. And I think it's because of all the self-development that you've done recently too. And I think that that's probably what we all have experienced to how we've been able to get to that next level. But I mean, you could share whatever you want from start to finish, Jim.
Yeah.
I want Sarah to hear, I want our listeners to hear, you know, from that moment that we met at that casino in that line, like what happened, and then when did the switch happen?
Yes. How did you become the beautiful butterfly?
Did you just call me a beautiful butterfly? I like that. It's the 21st century, so we're comfortable in our masculinity now. We're comfortable enough, so I'll take the beautiful butterfly. Especially like I'm trying for like the poor man's Jason Statham here. You know, I got like the buzz and I got the beard and I got the gray, and you know, I'm working on that. You know, but hey, you know, whatever we can do. So all right. So what I want to say first is that night was. I had been asked to be a ring announcer by Joel Lopez of Rough MMA in Arizona. And it was because I had done radio and TV for years. So it's a completely different thing. I'm a play-by-play announcer. I'm an interviewer. I'm the host of a show. So being a ring announcer is completely different. So for you UFC fans, Goldie or John Anik versus Bruce Buffer, completely different skill sets, completely different, you know, jobs, performance-wise. Bruce Buffer is almost like a singer. I've seen him sing some Frank Sinatra songs and he'll blow your minds. His voice, like, and now, that's singing almost, right? And diaphragmatic, everything's coming from there. So when Joel said, hey, I want you to be my ring announcer, I'm like, dude, you're kidding, right? I can't do that. It's not something that's in my skill set. I'm not that big voice guy. I'm not the carnival barker. I'm not like any of that stuff. So he goes, you're going to be great. I believe in you, whatever. So what I did was, it was a great lesson for me moving forward. I took it because I had been covering every other sport for years. I covered the NBA Finals, the Super Bowl, the biggest fights. I had done a national radio show and TV and all that. Then I'm in Arizona, and these guys are, and I'm just going to backpedal a little bit from Joel and take you back to 2010. So I'm announcing and I'm doing the state wrestling championships, and I did football and basketball on Fox Sports in Arizona, did all the Bishop Gorman versus the Arizona Schools games in Vegas. And then they said, do you know how to do wrestling? And so, of course, I said yes, and I did it. And my partner was a guy named Gerald Taylor, who was an ASU wrestling All-American and legend. And so he said, I want you to come to a meeting with me on Tuesday. These guys are going to love you. So I walk into a meeting, and it's a fundraiser for ASU wrestling. And as you know, what a feeder for the UFC. I mean, even in the early days, Dan Henderson, Don Fry, Dan Severn, and, you know, just amazing names from Arizona. Yuma's own Cain Velasquez is another one. So I walk in the room. There's Ryan Bader, there's Aaron Simpson, there's CB Dollaway, there's all these UFC, and I'm like, whoa, I'm used to covering NBA and NFL guys who would never be in this room to support anyone. They would send a check or whatever from far away. So I meet the fighters and I fall in love with the sport. And I start going to Power MMA and Fitness with Bader and Aaron and getting wrapped up in the sport. So then right after all this is happening, we launched our radio show, the Power MMA show. We were the first MMA radio show on a major sports station in America, on Arizona Sports, ESPN, KTAR in Phoenix. So we did that for a couple of years, but as I'm doing that is when Joel said, hey, I want you to be my ring announcer. So what I did, just like you girls know, if there's something that someone asks you to do and you think you can't do it because you think it has to be done a certain way, maybe you find a way to do it in your own way, make it your own, and be successful that way. You know what I mean? So I decided to make it more conversational, make it more like a host would do, not try to hit those high and deep and low bass in my voice and do all that, and not play into my strengths. So I made it more conversational, made it more fun. You know, I would video the audience. I would just do it almost like a talk show. And that was a great lesson for me because no matter what comes our way in life, there's always a way to do it. I just interviewed Dana White last week and I asked him how the UFC is so ahead of everybody in the COVID era. How are you guys still marching forward and barely a blip on the radar screen as in terms of trouble or anything? They got their own fight island in Abu Dhabi. And he goes, there is no. There's always a way. You just have to find it. And he goes, I'm not a guy who stops until I find that way. He was going to build his own hospital and his own testing center on their own land if it didn't work out the way he had done it. So finding a way to get it done. And that was my second show, Amanda, when I met you. My second show. So I was still green, still wet behind the ears. I wasn't a butterfly yet. But I was also 45 pounds heavier 8 years ago stuffed into my suit like a Thanksgiving turkey, looking like the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man wearing it. So I was like this pasty white marshmallow in a shiny silver suit, thinking I looked cool. So I don't know, but it was a long time ago, and it just taught me to adapt and find a way to get it done no matter what it is. And then since then, I ended up meeting someone else, getting a divorce, in a relationship with her for 7 years. And we started a company together. We did marketing, we did advertising, we did restaurants, we did food, we did film festivals. We traveled all over doing MMA and boxing, and we would run the whole show from the live stream with the cameras and the lights. And we had 37 people doing one MMA show with Rage in the Cage, and we were in charge of all of it. We ran the whole thing. So really developed and moved along that way. And then we split apart in our company a couple of years back, and she just went off in the direction of food and all these other things. Now she's killing it on the restaurant side with her agency and her personality, and she's got a big personality as well. So we kind of did that, and there was some real self-destructive stuff going on in terms of me drinking too much and partying too much and too much fun. I had met the love of my life. I had brought our families together. We started a company together. We thought we would walk right through it, and then next thing you know, I'm drinking all the time. So it sort of stunted my growth a little bit. I kept ring announcing through that time. I kept my radio shows going. I would be at the UFC fights, but I would never really live up to my full potential in getting things done and being the person I need to be, because there was always that element with me. So then I quit drinking a couple of years ago, really got myself together then, but then I didn't know myself. My identity kind of went away, and I was struggling to figure that out. So fast forward a couple of years, earlier this year, we broke up, and it was devastating, literally for me, for a long time. And, you know, we'll always be friends, I think, and, you know, whatever. But it was a really, really tough. So it forced me to not only be without the person I thought I would be with for the rest of my life, not only, you know, readjust my thoughts and my patterns and everything. COVID hit at the same time, and I couldn't go on my road trips anymore. I had gotten it down to a really good formula of going to where the UFC was that weekend, fight-wise, twice in Vegas, once in Albuquerque, once with Kelvin Gastelum, who we were just talking about, and in New Mexico with the karate hottie Michelle Watterson. And we had huge success with these events. I made good money doing them. And then all of a sudden the world comes to a halt, and I have to readjust again. So it was a miserable summer. I'm single, I'm heartbroken. I can't go make money doing what I was doing. So I had to readapt. Thank God the UFC decided to let me in and be one of the few people to go cover it in the COVID era. I went up for a show in June. I'm all self-funded, so I couldn't afford to stay the whole month of June and do all the shows. So I said, that's not happening again. So August came around. I said, there's 9 shows, 9 events. I said, I'll be there the whole month. I'm going to kick ass and stand out like I always do in these press conferences. So I was standing 5 feet away from Dana White. Nobody else introduces themselves. They're all sitting down. I'm like, Jim Grieshaber, cage side seat, Dana, and I'm wearing nice shirts, and I got a clothing deal, and I'm like staring at him. And so the third goal was to get a one-on-one with Dana, and I got it before the end of the month. So he said to me, he goes, man, you really stood out. He goes, you kicked ass. He goes, I'm impressed by you, and I really appreciate you. Sorry about the phone there. So I'm impressed by you, and I really appreciate you. I have to unplug here for a second, ladies. Give me 1 second. There we go. Okay, so it just was a matter of being there, figuring out a way, not letting anything stop me, and just doing it. And since doing that, my career has taken off, and now everyone's seeing this Dana White interview. It's everywhere on social media. People are blowing me up about it. Sponsors are coming in from everywhere. And on top of that, the really cool thing about it is my friend from MMA Weekly, he comes and he wants to meet with me, Scott Peterson. He's the owner of MMA Weekly, and I'm going to break this right here. So no one knows this yet, but MMA Weekly for years, they were there before Dana and the Fertittas bought the UFC. They get millions of views, and they have over 1 million subscribers and followers on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram. And he said, I have something you don't have. You have something I don't have. I want to work with you. And I said, what? He goes, we don't have the personal content. We don't have the interviews. We don't have the shows, the live streams. We just do like, you know, live feeds of the press conferences and highlights of the fights. So we want to add that human element to our coverage. We want you to be the face, the voice, and everything of MMA Weekly with Cage Side Seat. So now my audience has gone from here to literally here. And we're just starting now, Amanda and Sarah. So I'm like literally, like, you can probably hear it coming out of me.
The fashion.
So from the guy who was not hitting on you in line for crappy teachers to here, you know, look, I mean, it's been a tough ride sometimes, but, you know, divorce and kids and losing my girl and all these things, but nothing can ever stop me. Nothing will ever stop me. And it's because I choose that life. I choose to be inspired. I choose to let the energy come into me and go back out of me to inspire others. And I believe that when your purpose, and this has been life coaching, when your purpose is much, much bigger than yourself and everybody in your immediate circle, when your purpose is huge and it's your heart and you follow it, nothing can take you off that path. It would take a lot. I mean, I don't say nothing, but it would take a lot.
Yeah. And first of all, let's backtrack. This deal that you have with MMA Weekly, this is a big deal. Like this,
you know MMA Weekly pretty well?
This is a huge deal. This is like,
huge deal.
You're going to be the face, and I'm so happy for you. Like, this is great.
Yeah,
and thank you for sharing that with us too, because I know that, you haven't been able to say much about it.
I had to have something big for you, Amanda. I've been waiting a long time to do your show, Sarah, both of you. And so, I mean, we've connected a couple times and we've texted back and forth and we've talked, and you've kind of said, hey, I want to have you on sometime. And I never harass people who say that. Sometimes I've said that to people, and then every 2 days, when, so I just wanted to let it happen naturally. And when we spoke this last time and you said, I want to have you on this week, what are you doing Friday? I said, I have to have something big for her. This is a long time coming. It's a celebration. And so I wasn't supposed to say anything about that, but I let the cat out of the bag because, this is something where, and if you don't know, and I'm sure you do, if you're watching, Amanda's past, she's helped so many people. She's helped so many people struggling, so many people fighters. No one struggles more than an amateur fighter or a pro fighter who's just starting out. And when you were doing, down in Yuma, Amanda, you helped so many people and so many people in the community. And so to be able to do a show like this with you and with you, Sarah, it feels so good, because that's what the purpose is for all of us, is to help people and make people feel better and make people realize that no matter what happens in the world, we can still contribute in a positive way. This is why I always tell people, stop talking about Trump. Stop talking about Democrats versus Republicans. Stop, being divided over political line. That's what they want, because they all want power and they all want our money and they all want our power. Whether you want to wear a mask or you don't, people are being divided over the silliest things right now. And I always feel like if we stay positive and we focus on being inspirational for ourselves and for the people in our lives, ourselves, our significant others, our families, our communities, if we all worry about that first and foremost, that's how the whole world gets better, because we're not going to solve the problems of the president. We're not going to solve the problems of entire races of people. We're not going to solve everything by bickering about it. We can solve it by making ourselves the best versions of ourselves and impacting our community as much as we can. And I'll never not believe that. That's something I'll preach till the day I die.
Yeah, and Jim, something that really stands out for me as someone who studies mindset of high performing individuals is that you said that, we have to have purpose, and that's what continues to push us and keep us going. But what I think some people misunderstand, the reason why they're like, okay, why am I on this hamster wheel and not getting where I want to be in life, is maybe their purpose isn't it's focused more on something within them, or what they want. Maybe their purpose is to be where you're at in life. You know what I mean? But I don't think that your purpose was necessarily to get to this goal so much as it was to help so many people and be of service to others as much as possible. So do you feel in your profession, people get that mixed up, and that's a lot of the reason why they don't get to the success level that they want to be at?
Yeah, I think that if you're not looking to serve first, then you're missing the boat. I mean, it's okay to have an ego. It's okay to want the best for yourself. Look, even the people who give the most in the world, I'm sure, Mother Teresa, with all the things that she did, or Gandhi with all the things that he did, they still did those things for themselves on some level because it made them feel good. And that's what we do as people, right? So if it makes us feel good to give back. But I always think about being a kid, and you girls can go back in time and just kind of close your eyes a little bit and think back to Christmas or birthdays when you were a kid. Nothing in the world made me happier than giving my parents and my siblings their gifts, no matter how much money I spent, no matter what the gifts were. So I was always way happier when other people were opening my gifts than I was when I was opening the ones they gave to me. And I always love the ones they give me, don't get me wrong, but giving always makes us feel better as humans. I think it's actually in our DNA. And even talking to fighters and coaches, which is my world, and even inspirational people, like when I met Tony Robbins in January, I backed right into him and turned around holy shit, I watch him every day, standards and massive action. And I believe I visualized that into my life with what I was doing. And it was the day of my birthday at McGregor Cowboy Weigh-ins in January. And all of a sudden I turn around and holy crap, there's Tony Robbins, And so when people are on that level and they're helping people every single day, and when you're giving as much of yourself as you can to the world, you know, you get back. You always get back. Even the wealthiest people and the most successful people in the world only get a percentage of what they provide. Think of how much money LeBron James makes for people. He gets a percentage of it. He might be a billionaire in a couple of years, but that billion is only a percentage of what he created for others. So when we come from that mindset first, not always easy to do, taking the ego out. And so even this summer, and I don't know if my ex and I are going to end up together or not. I don't know what's happening. I'll always love her. She loves me. Things are weird. But even when I was at my lowest points and I was like, man, my life is over. You know, this is what I've built toward. And now I can't go do my show. And I'm sitting in Arizona, stuck in the heat. And you start to feel sorry for yourself. I'm like, wait a minute, what am I doing? How can I sit here and feel sorry for myself? The number one thing that turned it around, and I swear to you, this is the God's honest truth. I woke up every day saying thank you for what I had. Even though like things were so tough and it was killing me, I woke up every day, thank you for my health, thank you for my kids, thank you, thank you, thank you, because it can go a lot worse really fast. And I don't want to tempt that hand of fate, you know, when it comes to gratitude, because when you have your health, when you still have breaths to take, when you still have people in your life who love you, when you still have a purpose and a vision, you have a lot to be thankful for. And we always tend to focus on what we haven't accomplished yet, or what we have in our lives that isn't going right now. For example, with COVID, everybody talks about, oh, people are unemployed, the money's this, everything's tough, you have to wear a mask. God forbid you wear a mask. I've never seen people act like babies. I mean, it might as well be a diaper. Everyone acts like such a baby. But it's like, okay, so instead of focusing on those things the second you wake up and picking up your phone and going, oh, CNN, oh, Fox, oh, Trump, you know, and then you start your day and you're mad and you're upset, and then you start thinking about what's wrong in your life. I go on airplane mode. I don't touch my phone for the first 2 hours that I'm up, and I do a D3, which is fitness and reading and the education, the meditating, which is really hard for me, journaling. It takes 2 to 3 hours every morning, and it centers me for my whole day. But number one, as soon as I open my eyes, is saying thank you.
Mm-hmm. So that's really interesting to me, because that's my profession is, hey, you know, center yourself, meditate and whatnot. And you're a very busy person. Amanda, you're a very busy person. But for a lot of people, when I say, you know, take that time to journal and meditate, they're like, I don't have the time for that. I'm too busy. So how do you manage that ability to like make sure that you're taking care of what you know you need to stay centered on track and keep up with everything that you have going on in your life?
Yeah, because maybe it's something that you were able to tap into while we're in COVID and we have the time, but how to keep that as life starts to get busy again.
It literally is what I dreaded and avoided like the plague my whole life when I was a giant overgrown child, which is getting up earlier. And I'd be like, why the hell does Mark Wahlberg get up at 4 a.m.? The Rock's up at 5. Oh, you know, you're sleeping too late. Well, you know why? Because nobody else is up yet. So I'm not getting any texts. I'm not getting any emails. My phone's on airplane mode anyway. I refuse to let the outside world in. Even when I have my kids, which is 50-50, they're not up yet. It's still dark outside. The sun's not even up. And so, you know, it's very hard for me to meditate because I'm ADHD and I can't hold a thought. So for me to sit there and meditate, my mind is like, oh, you know, what time's that meeting? You want some coffee? Did you leave the whatever plugged in? Did you, you know, like, I mean, all these, and I'm trying to center my mind and breathe. And I did some shamanic breathing work in Sedona with a woman named Anahata through a coaching mastermind that I was in. So when I learned shamanic breathing, you know, this whole nice, easy breathing doesn't really relax me the way it does most people, but the shaman, like 20 of those breaths, I'm okay. I feel connected spiritually in a way that I never had before. So if you have trouble meditating, try the deep, heavy, hard breaths as hard as you can. And not only breathing in as deeply as you can, but letting it out as far as you can and holding it for a minute so you know there's no air left in your lungs. You're like, whoa, if I don't breathe in here soon, I would die. And you become so connected to yourself on that level because you realize how important air is. And I thought this was all nonsense for so long. And then I did it and I'm like, you know, you can feel the life coming in and out of you and then your blood starts going. And so she taught me how to do that. And I'm like, whoa, okay, now all of a sudden, don't need coffee, don't need any kind of energy drink, nothing at all, even though I'm drinking coffee here. But it's just the shamanic breathing is like, to me, I never knew anything about it, so many people go through life not knowing about things that could really help them because, I mean, look, we know what we know, we know what we don't know, but we don't know what we don't know, which is like 99% of what we could know, right? So when I figured that out, girls, that was the biggest game changer for me.
Yeah, and you mentioned ego before, and I tell you how many times I've like, because it sounds like something so simple, right? But you see the value in it because you started doing it. And I would imagine like with fighters, and maybe I'm wrong, there's a lot of ego. So it's like, oh, it's common sense. I already know that. You know, what do you think?
For the fighters?
Yeah. Or just
I think, yeah, no, they definitely have to have egos, but they're really open to a lot of things as individual athletes, and their coaches are really open to a lot of things. So a lot of fighters meditate. A lot of them do yoga. A ton of them do yoga. They're very connected, I think, spiritually, but they come from wrestling or boxing and empty gyms. One of the reasons I fell in love with the sport as opposed to the NBA, Major League Baseball, I had interviewed, I'll give you an example, and I don't say this too often, but I'm proud of it. And it's something that's really cool. So I'm 48. I've been around a long time. So this has been my career. Okay. I've interviewed Magic Johnson, Michael Jordan, LeBron James, Kobe Bryant. I've interviewed all of them. So I've been around a long time, and I've been around a lot of greatness, a lot of coaches, and I've always tried to pull something from everyone that no one else had heard from them before. And usually it's related to inspiration and things that they do. One thing that I realized in talking to the people who are the greatest is that they always work the hardest. You can be born with all the natural talent in the world, but when you have all that natural talent with the best work ethic, that's when you get the Kobe's of the world. And that's when you get, I'll say it, even Conor McGregor or Khabib, who's super humble. I love Khabib. But the fighters, for the most part, training and growing up in their sports, and Amanda, you know this, they never had anybody watching. They had to mop the floors when they were done. Like, they had no fanfare whatsoever. LeBron James had ESPN doing his high school games with Bill Walton and Dick Vitale showing up. Ryan Bader told me one time, I go, how are you so humble, dude? This is impossible, He's like, I grew up in empty buildings with even when they wrestled at ASU, no one went to the wrestling, matches. It's a whole different world that they came up through. So they're much more humble, much more loyal, much more open to coaching and different ways of doing things than almost any other athletes I'd ever met. And that was probably 80% of the reason I fell so in love with the sport.
Yeah, it's true. Because I used to always say, and this is back whenever, I used to train with the fighters before I even owned the gym, but it was Friday nights. You knew who the champions were going to be. You knew who the winners were going to be because the winners would be in the gym on Friday nights.
On Friday nights, yep. And from owning a gym, Amanda, I want to hear from you because you don't open a gym and you don't own an MMA gym for profit. You might make a little money, but that's not the reason that you do it. Because if you do, you're going to be sadly disappointed.
I know that was one of the things that I used to really butt heads with people because they just thought, oh, Miss Amanda's just trying to make money all the time. I'm like, you don't understand. I want this thing to last for when I die. And that was one of the hardest things that I had to go through COVID was to close the gym because I was like, no, this is supposed to last till after I die. I was like so set on that. Because that's where people go. That's their place. That's their place to, release and unwind. And that's where, athletes and everyone are born in that facility. It's blood, sweat, tears for reals. But then it was the whole change the mentality, the way that I think.
There's so inspiring watching her.
It's sprinkled. That entire facility is sprinkled all over Arizona somewhere.
Yeah.
So okay. So you have like mats in one place, part of a cage here, some equipment there.
And that was
that's good. That's good. So there's your legacy right there. I mean, it's
just like how she made people feel, whenever they walked into that.
Yeah. No, it's you're such a positive person, and almost everyone I've met in this sport, minus a couple promoters, I hate to say it, but promoters are always promoters. Minus a couple promoters on the local and regional side who really aren't good people. Almost everyone I've met in this sport has been, very similar to us. People who want other people to win. So I had this thought yesterday. When you want other people to win, as much as, if not more than you want yourself to win, to me, that's you want a life hack? Start with that. You don't even need another one. If you root for other people as much as you root for yourself, what's the number two? number one right there, that you can live an incredible life just by that one right there. That's it.
Absolutely. I agree with that. And I'm so glad that you said that, because I really do believe that, you know, for people to get that fulfillment, you know, of feeling that purpose, like you were talking about, Jim, is you cheering on other people and helping other people, that gratitude, waking up with that gratitude. Those are the things that, you know, why we're here, why every single human being is on this earth. I think that one simple thing of waking up with gratitude can change lives right now.
Yeah. I think it's beautiful listening to both of you guys. It's so inspiring because both of you went through so much during COVID. And, you know, I know so many people who are just like still down and out and trying to recover and wrapping their head around what just happened. And like you were talking about earlier, those identity crisis. And, I mean, watching Amanda, you know, she grieved losing that gem, but it was so inspiring to watch her say, hey, like, I'm okay with letting go, and to recover so quickly and be back in it and be so inspirational and like passionate about what she's doing and move forward. And same with you. That's what I hear from you is, you know, you've learned how to say, okay, this isn't, you know, what I wanted, the outcome that I wanted, but now I'm, you know, moving forward and progressing, and all these big things are happening for you too. So, you know, obviously for you guys, gratitude was a huge part of it, but for those listening who are potentially going through something like, you know, a separation or losing their business, you know, what's something that you could tell them to help them to get through that a little faster and get back on to doing great things, if not better than what they were doing before?
Oh man, well, other than the gratitude, this one's easy. And this is, it's the easiest thing in the world when you ask me that question to come up with the answer, but I believe it's the hardest thing in the world to actually execute on. So it's that proverbial double-edged sword, right? It's simple, 3 letters. You guys probably know what I'm going to say. E-G-O, ego. So when you drop your ego, how can she do this to me? How can they do that to me? Don't they know who I am? I worked so hard. I deserve better. How, you know, like when you have those, man, you might as well drink cyanide. That is poison, and you poison your own brain. And I know so many people in my life, and have known them in 48 years on this, almost 49 years on this planet now. And I was one of them for so long, going through life, poisoning myself every day. It's almost like slowly every day drinking a little bit, and it eventually kills you, because it does kill you. It kills your mentality. Your mind controls everything. We think it, we feel it, you know, all those things have to process. So that's why Conor McGregor could say, hey, I was closing my eyes driving a bucket through Dublin in the worst neighborhood in Ireland. And to me, it was a Bentley, and it was Sunset Boulevard in Hollywood. And he goes, then one day it was a Bentley in Sunset. But to me, for 15 years, it already was a Bentley, because he didn't let his current situation dictate his mindset. When you let your current situation dictate your mindset, so I could have said to myself, I just got dumped. I lost all my income. I could just get fat and sit around, and I gave it a good try and blah, blah, blah. And people will enable that thinking. Oh, you gave it your best shot. No, just come get a job now. You know, because people don't feel comfortable sometimes pursuing their ultimate dreams, and they're more than happy to pull you back down with them, and not even doing it on purpose, trying to hurt you. But the ego, when you drop every single thought of somebody doing you wrong, or the world's against you, or any of those, all come from ego. And the way I see it, humility is really important, but more than humility, it's just realizing, okay, I'm in the moment right now. Did she break up with me? Yes. Is it going to work right now? No. Do I want it to work in the future? Yes, but this version of me wasn't good enough, and this version of her wasn't good enough. And then even on the business side, okay, something came up, and you know, you were in a business that got crushed by COVID. Well, look at the restaurants that did the takeout. My friend Jacqueline, oh my God, Axis Your Style, A-X-Y-I-S. She makes the dopest masks you've ever seen, right? Everyone's bitching about masks. Well, she signed an agreement with me to endorse and be a spokesperson for her masks. Well, she's the buyer for Masura Men's Clothing, which is in the MGM Grand, in the Mandalay Bay, at Caesar's Palace, airports all over the country, casinos. They sell, you know, Maseu. This is a Maseu shirt from there. Hugo Boss, everything, you know, you would imagine. And fine men's clothing, right? She's the buyer for those stores. Well, all of a sudden those stores are doing nothing because they're all casinos and airports. And then she's furloughed, and she's like, shit, like everyone, you know what she did? She started her own line of masks, and I can tell you, she's made $180,000 in 5 months, which is like 3 years salary for her, or 2 years, or whatever it is. And that's what I'm talking about. There's always a way to turn, you know, and I can say this because we're not on radio or TV, but there's always a way to turn chicken shit into chicken soup. You can do it. You can do it if you think about it and you're resourceful. Tony Robbins has another line that I love. You're not lacking resources, you're lacking resourcefulness. So how do I get that resourcefulness? If I'm starting in gratitude and I'm dropping the ego, those are the first 2 steps to get your mind right. But then you have to be creative and think of a way to work around it. And it never happens when I want it to. Right now, I have 10 things I'm waiting for that still aren't happening on my own timeline. And you can get frustrated and pissed off, or you can say, okay, what's happening now is what's meant to happen. It's all happening for me, not to me, which is a huge thing in my life. I look at things as happening for me. And oh God, that one's tough too. But when you look at it that way, you know, my friend broke his arm when he was 11 years old. He broke his right arm. For 8 months, he was in a cast. We played basketball every day. He was playing left-handed. Guess what happened when he got to high school and got a scholarship? Because his left hand was so good from his arm being broken. Yeah. So it happened for him, not to him, you know. And I always use that example of my best friend, Mike McBride, Butter, if you watch this. But he took a negative and turned it into a positive. We all do it every day, right? Amanda, you've done it a million times. I've seen you do it.
Yeah.
Look at your gym. You said the equipment's all over the place, right? You took a negative and you were able to still help a ton of people through a very negative situation in your own life.
Yeah, I think that learning how to look at that perspective you just said, it's happening for me. Even when
it's hard.
It is so hard to sit in that and be like, this is hard. I remember, you know, the moment my older boys decided to stay in Arizona and did not want to come with me to Georgia, I was sitting in the shower, bawling my eyes out, thinking, you know, my kids don't want to go with me. And I was like, this is happening for me and it's happening for them. And I know there's a better reason. And that was a hard pill to swallow, but those are the pills we have to swallow in order for us to get better ourselves for other things that are going to happen in the future that we don't know yet.
That attachment we have.
Yep, absolutely. Did you have another question?
Oh, I was so caught up. I guess, you know, it's interesting because this is a certain type of mindset, right? And I know personally, whenever you try to explain this to certain people, there's almost like this resistance. It's like, oh, but I'm a realist. So I'm just curious. Yeah, so I'm just curious, you know, when you were climbing up this ladder and doing all these big things and interviewing, before you were interviewing these people, and you had this mindset, did you feel a lot of resistance, and how do you kind of like tune that out and stay focused on your goal? Because I think that for a lot of people that I work with, like when they hear that from other people, it kind of deters them. They're like, oh, well, maybe I should just get this job, you know, in this comfortable position instead of going after what it is that I truly want.
Yeah, a lot of coaching, a lot of conversations with not would-be mentors, but people who I consider friends and mentors in mindset that I would take from people, but also doing coaching. One of my coaches, Tommy Baker, Resist Average, he does a program called The Arena. It's a mastermind. He had me read a book called The One Thing by Gary Keller Williams Realty. And it's about focusing on the one thing you want the most in the world. What is the question of the book throughout the whole book is, what is the one thing I can do by doing such that makes everything else easy or unnecessary? And so many people get caught up, like you have that 100-item long to-do list and you feel like you got it. Oh, I folded my laundry, I did the dishes, and you're checking them off so you feel like you're getting shit done. But you look at the end of the day and the most important things aren't done. So identifying that one thing every single day, and even when you're having the worst day, and just moving the needle every day, getting a little bit better. You know, Amanda, like a guy like Kelvin, he's drilling a certain move he's going to do in a fight, like a certain counter. Let's say a check hook like Ryan Bader did. He worked this hook for 5 years without using it in a fight, and then he knocked 3 guys in a row out with it. Oh, this new punch, he's been working on it for years. It just so happened to be there in that fight. But every single day, moving the needle forward a little bit, that's how I beat my own resistance. And we all have resistance. Resistance is, if you read The War of Art by Stephen Pressfield, not The Art of War by Sun Tzu, The War of Art by Stephen Pressfield. It's a little book. He's an author. He wrote The Legend of Bagger Vance, the one that ended up being the Will Smith movie with Matt Damon or whatever it was. So he wrote a whole book about resistance. And resistance, it'll be like, no matter what, when you're sitting and you have work to do and you know what that one thing is, your mind will come up with a million reasons for you not to sit down and start. Because once you sit down and start, it's like working out. It's like everything else. Once you get to the gym, you're fine. But God dang, trying to get there in the morning, it's like fighting with, you know? So literally sat there and overcoming that resistance every day. The one thing that stood out to me is he had a line in the book that said, the amateur waits for motivation to perform. The professional gets motivated when he starts performing. So the professional makes himself sit down and do it, and that's the biggest difference, right? So that's my own resistance. In terms of other people, forget it. Everyone in the world, from my ex-wife to my ex-girlfriend, to my kids, to my father, to my mother, to the professors in college, to anyone I've met along the way, for the most part, oh man, how are you going to do that? That's 1 in a million. 3% of people make it in broadcasting and have a career even, and blah, blah, blah. And I just always kind of had the mindset, I think I was just stupid and naive, small town boy from Connecticut, believing I could do things that, because I do believe you have to be somewhat naive if you're chasing your dreams. You don't want to think about the negative side. So the professor said, we're in a room of 300 people at the University of Miami in Florida. It's the first night. It's the meeting for the TV and radio program, broadcast journalism major. And he goes, look around this room. And there's 300 plus of us. And he goes, the numbers say only 3 of you are going to make it in broadcasting. And so my first thought, without thinking, it just popped into my head, is like, I wonder who the other 2 are. That was it.
I love it.
That's why I call myself naive. I was just stupid and naive enough to believe at a young age that I could do it. And then it's just a battle of attrition. It's just staying around and showing up every day. You guys know this. When you show up every day powerfully, you might not move the needle. You might go backwards a lot of days. But when you think about it, you're showing up every day. And most people won't do that. Most people give up on themselves way too easily. And if there's anything in this world that really, truly breaks my heart, and I don't mean like starving kids or anything like that. I'm talking about one thing, human-wise, that really breaks my heart, is the mindset that people have that they can't do things. And it drives me crazy, because I'm never going to be 7'1" and dunk like Shaq. There are certain things I can't do. I'm not going to build a rocket. That's not going to happen. But I live near people who build rockets, because I'm building my own rocket in my own way, in my own life. And I just believe that if you find what you're good at and you're passionate about it, you'll find a way to make it work. How many athletes have you seen, Amanda, who wanted to be pro fighters and couldn't, but now they're coaches, now they're managers, now they're broadcasters? I tried out for the baseball team at the University of Miami, and I was good, but those guys are great. So I'm here and they're there. And the coach goes, I had talked all this trash to the coach. I'm going to be your guy. Watch, I'm going to hustle so hard. You're going to pick me. I'm going to be your walk-on. And they're a national championship contending team every year. So after 2 days of tryouts, I'm walking off the field, and Coach Jim Morris, he goes, where are you going, man? And I go, and I pointed to the press box, and I go, up there. And he goes, probably a good move for you. But I found a way to stay involved in sports, even though I wasn't good enough to make them my career on the field, on the court, in the cage, whatever. I still found a way to be there. And I think that you can always find a way to do whatever you want to do. And if you don't give up on yourself, I think it's a given when you don't give up on yourself that you will.
That sounds similar to Mark Cuban when he bought the teams because he wasn't good.
Yeah, I knew that. Yeah.
Oh, he's unbelievable too. What an inspirational dude he is. I love Mark Cuban.
Absolutely. Well, I am so excited for our listeners to hear all
Just everything
of everything in this episode. I think that this is, very inspirational, very energetic, very valuable information. And I'm just so excited to get this one published, to be honest. Jim, I'm so very thankful for you and for, that moment that we were standing in line together for this moment right now. And
you're hitting on Amanda.
I want to say this too, Amanda, whatever you're doing, girl, and now you're going to say I'm hitting on you again, but I've had to shave my head. I have all this gray that I didn't have. I have some lines, maybe some Botox in my future. You haven't aged a damn day. What is going on here?
I'm getting better. I don't know what it is. I'm like a vampire now.
It's the energy. It's like just.
We're gonna have to do some pictures of both of us back then, because I think that we both look better, honestly.
Yeah, you look great.
I'll text you a picture from that night after we finished recording.
Awesome.
I was, Sarah, when you see this, I mean, I look at pictures now side by side, and I'm like, what what in the world, you know? And my ex-wife would always, you know, she had bad food, and every time I would lose weight, she'd buy my favorites, and I'm like, and I'd eat them. And it's not her fault, it was me, but people who use food as a reward, I had to get myself out of that mindset, and I try to teach my kids this now. Oh, you get an A, we'll go out for pizza. No, you get an A, I'll give you $20. You know, I'm not going to give you fattening food as a reward and make you think that every time you do something good, you should eat ice cream or pizza, because I did that, and that's a bad mindset. So I lost a ton of weight, and you know, it's crazy because I look better now, even though I'm older. But you actually do. I think you might even look younger, Amanda, than you did then. Which is,
pictures.
maybe it's you, Sarah. Maybe sitting next to you, she's got that back of youth.
Well, okay, so I didn't want to ask more questions, but I can't help myself. So, you know, back then, when you say that you were 40 pounds heavier, do you feel like you were in denial? Like, do you feel like you thought that you had it all figured out, and you were in denial about like the work that you needed to do to be the beautiful butterfly you are now? Or did you know you needed work?
Wait, hold on. I have like a little butterfly swirling around my head, like, keep going. Oh, I think we all think we're in a different place than where we actually are. If you talk to most people and you ask them where they are in life, and usually, unfortunately, it's more negative than positive when I talk to people. And I think that you always think you're in a different place than what you really are, where you really are in your life. So back then, I was ring announcing, I was doing play-by-play, I was living my dream still, but on the personal side and on the self-development side, the business side, all those things, I look back now and I go, wow, you know, I was staying up late, eating a ton of food and getting drunk 3-4 times a week. And, you know, just all the things that you think you're supposed to do. Because so many people, what do? They get up, they go to work, they come home, they drink, they smoke weed, they go to sleep, they do it again. People, the pills are at an all-time high. Vicodin, pain relievers. People are coming home and sucking down pills, Xanax, Ambien to sleep, because they've made their lives so tough because of the stories they keep telling themselves. And I think that I was right in that group. You know, I've been in that group for most of my adult life, where you think you're doing better than you are, but then you look at it and deep down inside you're unfulfilled and you don't know why. And I've spent so many hours reflecting and trying to figure out why I was unhappy, why I was unfulfilled, why I was putting my happiness in other people's hands. And I still did it, even with this breakup. I made my life about her, not about me. And the biggest thing I've done since the breakup is, and it's hard for me because I want to be selfless, and I was raised in New England. I had 2 grandmothers who lived into their 90s. If I didn't hold doors and pull out chairs, I got hit with something, you know. I was taught to put everyone else first, and I wouldn't trade that. But without self-love, without self-respect, without standards for yourself, without living for yourself first, you can never be who you're meant to be for other people. I never figured that part out. So that's my struggle, and that's what I'm working on now, is to love myself enough to make myself whole. And I'm not there yet. I'm getting there, but I'll never need anybody else in my life again in a relationship, because I'll love myself enough. I'm enough for myself on a Friday night or a Saturday night to be alone and not feel like I'm missing anything like I did for most of my life. This party, that event. You know? I always thought I was missing something.
Robin says put your oxygen mask on first.
Who's the
flight
attendant says that?
Well, Tony Robbins used it as a, you know, like to help people understand, because you're so right. Like, that's such a belief system that's engraved in us, and it's really, really hard to see how we're self-sabotaging, because, you know, I'm selfish if I put myself first, but you know what I mean? You can pour your heart out and give to others and be selfless and still take care of you first. That's the only way that that's going to work out. So I love my accent's coming out and getting passionate.
Oh, yeah. I'm going to get an accent right now, too.
Oh, yeah, we have fun. We have fun. I hope you come to Georgia. Are you coming to Georgia anytime soon?
If I come into Georgia anytime soon, I would love to, because I love, and I know you're in the Atlanta area, I love Atlanta. I haven't been there a ton of times, like maybe 4 times, but I love the people, I love the food, I love the culture, I love the vibe. I lived in Miami for 12 years, between Miami and Fort Lauderdale, and I went around the whole South to football games and covering football games for the University of Miami. And I would travel to different football cities, and I loved going to Athens. My friend Matt Casey has a brewery in Athens called Academia Brewing. If you're in Athens, my friend Matt Casey, who I grew up with, is the owner of that. So he's there, and the people are great, and the culture's awesome. You girls are there. So I don't know when the UFC will make it back there, But the next time the UFC comes to Atlanta, I'm going to guarantee that I'll be there. And I'll be there maybe before then, but for sure.
It's not all bad, so actually, party time. Never mind.
Between the hedges, right?